What is up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Somewhat Sports Podcast. My name is Chris, and I'm joined by two of the greats in this industry, Jurg and Dame. Fellas, how are we this week?
As per usual, I'm doing good. The band is back together this week. That's what I'm most excited about. It's been a while since we had a full house here on the show, but we're back. The big three is back and reunited. I'm just happy. It's always the best possible show when it's all three of us on.
Meh. Dame, how are you?
Yeah, I'm back from Nashville. I wish I was there. Wish I was doing a podcast right now. That would have been cool, but it is what it is. Back to the life.
Yeah, the life, sure. I guess that's what it is. If you want to call it that, of course.
No,
But yeah, Dame.
I didn't mean it like that. I meant
No, no,
like,
no. You meant it like that. It's fine.
no.
But yeah, Dame's back from Nashville. Mr. Worldwide over here, just traveling the country.
How
Next
many
week.
different states has he been to while we've
You know what's
during
funny,
our
Jerg?
time
We were
recording this?
we were just talking about that before you came on. This dude has been, to anyone that doesn't know, to all the four listeners of this podcast, if at all. Damien's a really rich man, and he comes from a lot of means. He's very wealthy.
I'm just single. That's all it is.
All right, we didn't have. This is gonna be
That's
a
true.
therapy
I don't spend
podcast.
money on. No, I'm just saying I have nothing else to spend my money on. So
But anyway, we could talk about the financials and our romance lives in a separate podcast, of course. But that's not what you guys are here for. We
That's
probably
a Patreon exclusive.
yeah, exactly. We probably already lost whoever's here anyway. But yeah. So pretty simple week this week. We are in the thick of two sports playoffs: NHL playoffs, NBA playoffs. We're in the conference finals for NHL. Jerk, is that right?
Correct.
And for the NBA, we're in the NBA finals. Yeah, game one starts tonight. We're recording on Thursday. This will likely come out after Thursday. Notice how I can't say Friday because I've been slacking lately with the uploads. So Friday or Saturday, rarely on Sunday. But yeah, we're gonna be talking about basically the playoff update, for lack of a better term. But yeah, Jurg, like always, our hockey connoisseur, will guide us through the NHL playoffs. We'll make our comments, which I'm sure we have because the Rangers are, you know, they've hit fire. There's fire on ice for the Rangers. New York is booming right now, and we're all, New Yorkers here. Well, Jurg technically, but he's not here right now. But we got to support the Rangers, so we'll have some side comments, I guess, from the two idiots, me and Dame, actually. And then, of course, we'll talk about the NBA Finals. The Boston Celtics against the Golden State Warriors should be a fun matchup. No spoilers, of course. We're not going to talk about our thoughts just yet, but that's the rundown. NHL, then NBA. And as always, our very best, our very own Jurg, he takes it away with the hockey news, which is an NHL playoff update. So, Jurg, what do you have for us this week?
Ladies and gentlemen, it is conference final season. It is the final four of the NHL. While the NBA is going to get done early, don't you fret. If you still want high drama, high stakes, just incredible playoff games, the NHL is here to, give you plenty more content in regards to that once the NBA is over. And let's be real here, the Stanley Cup Finals are better anyways. But we have the conference finals. Both series had their opening games prior to this episode, and game two of the Avalanche and Oilers series is actually tonight. So we'll see who ends up winning that one. But just before the conference finals, like a little bit of an update because the semifinals were still going on last week. But of course, as you could already tell, the Colorado Avalanche defeated the St. Louis Blues in game 6 of their series. Ultimately, it was a wild affair, to say the very least, in that game 6. It was a real back and forth battle. The St. Louis Blues scored first in that game. Colorado tied it. St. Louis went up 2-1. Then Colorado tied it again. And then in the final seconds, these final second goals are really becoming a staple in these playoffs. But in the final seconds of the game, Darren Helm, playoff hero for the Colorado Avalanche, scores a goal with 6 seconds left to take a 3-2 lead and put the game out of reach. And it really sucked for St. Louis because it was looking like they were going to force a game 7, kind of like how I was talking about last week on the pod. I felt that they had the momentum coming off the game 5 overtime win, but it was not the case. St. Louis ended up, falling in the final moments, and Colorado advanced to the conference finals. Like I said, I believe the first conference finals appearance for the franchise since I want to say it was 2002 or 2001, one of those years. I want to say it was 2002. So it's been 2 decades since the Avalanche organization as a whole made it to the conference finals. And like I detailed last week, this specific core had 3 straight second round exits for themselves. So it's a long time coming for this team, organization, core, everything. So good job for Colorado. They advanced to the conference finals to face the Edmonton Oilers. I'll get to game one of that series in a moment. But not before I finish off what was the last semifinal series. And that was last weekend. The New York Rangers forced a game 7 at home at MSG. They won the game 5-2. And then after that, on Monday night, it was the last series to remain in the second round. The New York Rangers won 6-2 in Game 7 in Carolina, handing the Carolina Hurricanes their first home loss of these playoffs. And for Carolina, it tragic for them that their first loss had to be Game 7 at home. But that is the way the cookie crumbles, and that's what happens when you just play inconsistent. And finally, something was going to break in that series eventually, and it turns out it was going to be the Rangers being the first team to win on the road, and they won the most important game of them all, and that was Game 7. They won that one, like I said, 6-2. Just absolutely blitzed the Hurricanes early on in that one. 2 goals in the first period, took a 3-0 lead, and then at one point up 5-1. It was just a massacre, to say the least. Carolina just could not overcome what the Rangers threw at them defensively, and then just could not score with them offensively at the end of the series. The Rangers, in the final 2 games of that series, scoring a combined 11 goals, just completely outpacing what they did earlier in the series. And really, Carolina, for the most part, Carolina was just not that impressive overall throughout the series. As a whole, and easily the better team won there. Kind of like it's funny because Chris mentioned it last week how the Hurricanes would be a team that would challenge the Rangers, and probably most would have thought would eliminate them, but was not the case. The New York Rangers prevailed, and they make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, which Game 1 occurred last night. A shocking result, but like I said, we're going to do this chronologically. Game 1 between the Edmonton Oilers and the Colorado Avalanche was Tuesday night, and apparently Edmonton just loves getting in these high-scoring Game 1s in series. We know that in the last round, the Battle of Alberta had a 9-6 Game 1. Well, this one was pretty close. 8-6 was the final score in this one. And it was, to say the very least, chaotic. The way the goal scoring did. A couple instances in this game where goals were scored within seconds of each other, both in the opening 6 minutes of the first period, and then in the final closing moments of the first period, goals were scored. Just 36 seconds apart when it became 1-1, and then about 9 seconds apart when the Avs took a 3-2 lead. And more of this happened at the end of the second period. Goals scored just over 30 seconds apart from one another. Edmonton scored 2 goals to only be down by 1 in the third period, but then ultimately Colorado put it away at the end with the captain Gabriel Landeskog scoring 8-6 game there. Holy hell, to say the very least. The goal scoring was definitely a key thing going into the series because of what we've seen from Colorado in these playoffs, but especially with the Edmonton Oilers in the last round, with how they just absolutely torched the Calgary Flames. And goaltending was going to be viewed as whichever team's goalie sucks the least in this series is ultimately going to make the difference. Mike Smith did Mike Smith things, and by that he just played absolutely terrible for the Oilers in that Game 1 with his performance. Allowed 6 goals before he was ultimately pulled, and Mikko Koskinen played a lot better. Really brings up the question on if the Oilers are going to now make a change in net in the playoffs. This question came up after Game 1. They stuck with Mike Smith. Ultimately, he was good. He did fine, but he wasn't great still. And we know it was the Oilers' offense that ultimately carried them. So it'll be interesting to see if they do end up making that decision here. Colorado will also have some goaltending decisions of their own because Darcy Kemper, the thing is that he left with a upper body injury in Game 1, and he has been officially ruled out for Game 2. And I don't know if I saw anything about him being ruled out for the series per se, but we will ultimately see what the case is there. Pavel Francouz will end up taking the reins in this series. Did a relatively good job for the Avs in the regular season, 15-5-1 for Colorado during the regular season. Now, granted, the team in front of him is supremely talented, to say the least, so that's a guy right there that, he benefits from having the team in front of him. We'll see if he'll be able to step up for them in the playoffs. He has played so far in the playoffs. He actually started the Game 4 in the Nashville Predators series because I believe Kemper, that was when he got hit in the eye in Game 3, and they just sat him out, and he was able to hold on for them to win in that one. He did allow 3 goals, but they ended up winning that one 5-3. And then he got the ice time in this Game 1, allowed 3 goals, but of course his teammates were able to step up for him. So it'll be an interesting series. Really now the potential goaltending changes for both sides is really going to make a difference here because it's now about which team's backup goalie is going to perform better for them and who can do the best job possible to stop the opposing offensive side, which not only easier said than done. I wouldn't be surprised if this is. I don't think this is going to be the last 8-6 game, or maybe not 8-6 per se, but the last high scoring game in this series. When you have the offensive talents on both sides that you do, you have Evander Kane, Leon Draisaitl, Zach Hyman, Connor McDavid, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins on one side, and on the other side you have Gabriel Landeskog, Nazem Kadri, and Nate McKinnon and Cale Makar. Mikko Rantanen. It's just gobs of offensive talent on both sides. We're going to get a couple high scoring games in this series. It'll be interesting to say the least who comes out on top. My initial prediction for the series was Avs in 7. Looking good so far because they won game 1. It'll be interesting to see ultimately which team is able to overcome. I think for the NHL, it's a win for either team making it to the finals. I think the Colorado Avalanche, of course, have been the team that has been promised for a couple years now. Like I said, that they've fell in the second round multiple times in recent years. They've been a team that a lot of people have pegged to be that next team up in terms of being a Stanley Cup contender. And if they can get it, they definitely prove a lot of people right, myself included, because they were my favorites going to the Stanley Cup Final, coming into the playoffs. And with the Edmonton Oilers, they're another team which kind of, you would have thought another year or two away from where Colorado is because of the struggles they've had in the playoffs, because of the shaky goaltending. But clearly Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl have taken over and said, goaltending be damned, we're going to get this team pretty far. And for them to be in the Western Conference Finals at this point is spectacular. For them to have any kind of success under Connor McDavid is amazing, because I think every NHL fan in the world wants Connor McDavid to have success in general, and a lot of people don't care where it is per se, because some people have said, if you look at comment sections, that they wish that McDavid would be able to leave Edmonton because they have done such a poor job over the last couple of years. But now finally they're able to make a run here in the playoffs after being swept out last year. So what a phenomenal run it's been, and we'll see where that series goes. But this is the premier series to watch out for in terms of goal scoring. If you're talking about what the modern NHL has kind of become in terms of skill being the predominant factor, this is the series to watch. I don't think, like I said, not every game is going to be this high scoring. We will definitely get another one or two in there, but not every single game is going to be like this. At some point, there should be a little bit of a lull. There will be a quote unquote low scoring game. Now, for this series, that might mean a 4-3 game, which is still pretty good scoring and would still probably hit the over in most betting circles. Although, actually, probably after that game 1, I think the betting for the series is going to end up being a total 8.5 goals, and I wouldn't be surprised at that. And you would have to consider the over there as well. Just a little bit of advice: don't take it. Don't take any gambling advice that you hear on this podcast to heart, ladies and gentlemen, because, well, I'm not a gambling expert. I can't speak to Dame or Chris, but I certainly am not. Moving on to the moving on to the series that Chris definitely wants to get into, because it started last night and it started out the perfect way possible. But the New York Rangers and Tampa Bay Lightning, the perceived more defensive series between the two teams, got started, and the Rangers played good defensively. The Tampa Bay Lightning did not. The Rangers ended up winning game 1 in Madison Square Garden last night, 6-2, just absolutely shelling Andrei Vasilevsky in that one. Uh, the Tampa Bay Lightning defense just could not solve the Rangers. They were not able to really help Vasilevsky a lot. A lot of the Rangers players were able to easily get the puck in the offensive zone. They were able to get the puck in the slot. They were able to create a ton of havoc, ton of pressure. There was just no support for Vasilevsky in that first game, and that's what ultimately resulted in it. It was a 2-2 game about close to midway through the second period. Then the Rangers took a 3-2 lead, and then they just absolutely controlled and blew out the game from there. So big time win for them. The first time these playoffs, actually, the Rangers have won game 1 of a series, because they lost game 1 against Pittsburgh in the first round, and they lost game 1 against Carolina in the second round. So now they take a 1-0 lead in a series for the first time in these playoffs. Will be interesting to see there how this series continues with the Rangers. They are ahead of schedule, you could say. I expected them to be a playoff team going into this season, of course. For them to be in the conference finals, I think, is absolutely outstanding. And now you look at this team and what they could do. They're 3 wins away from the Stanley Cup Final. The Rangers haven't been there since 2014. It would mean a lot for them to get back, but let's pump the brakes. I know Chris is ready to celebrate it, but let's pump the brakes a little bit, because they are facing the defending back-to-back Stanley Cup champion Tampa Bay Lightning. This team has not lost back-to-back games in the postseason in years, and they are just coming off a series where, now, of course, the New York Rangers to me are the better team. All that obvious, especially with how the playoffs have played out. But the Tampa Bay Lightning only allowed 4 goals in 3 games against the Florida Panthers. Now, obviously, the Rangers out doing that in game 1 means that they are more that they're ready and they were able to attack Tampa Bay better. Yes, but at the same time, I also believe what this means is that Tampa Bay is going to come out a lot more focused in game 2. They are certainly going to be a lot more prepared for what the Rangers are throwing at them. And if you're the New York Rangers, the whole key in this series is that at some point you need to beat Tampa Bay in back-to-back games. And literally no one has been able to do that in the last 2.5 plus postseasons. It's going to be interesting to see if the Rangers can become the first team to do that since 2019. And I think the big thing for New York will just be when Tampa counters, like, can they just keep up with them? Because the thing is, this Tampa Bay Lightning team, I think a lot of people do forget that they're still not 100% in the lineup. Braden Point did, he was out on the ice skating prior to game one, but he still did not play. I don't know or think he's going to likely play in the conference finals. I think if you're Tampa Bay, the best case scenario is him coming back in the Stanley Cup final, unless he guts it out towards the end of the series, which I could see potentially if the series does go deep, which I believe the series will go deep. Relatively speaking, I had the Lightning winning in 6 originally. I'm going to stick by that for now because I do think Tampa Bay can just, attack you and they can rebound in bunches. But we'll see. The New York Rangers, that was definitely a massive confidence booster for them in game one. Gerard Gallant is really proving why he is a phenomenal coach. If only teams like Vegas or Florida had him, that would be an amazing guy to have behind the bench. But they wouldn't fire him if they had him. No, that wouldn't happen at all. That's a fantasy scenario. Like, it's like the fantasy me and Chris talked about last week. Like, if Jimmy Butler and Joel Embiid were on a team and you allowed them to break up, no, who would do that? No, what, couldn't see it happening. But irregardless, we have the conference finals going down. Game ones have happened. Game twos are coming up. By the time that this episode is posted, we probably will be 2 games into both series. And I'm just here for the entertainment. I think Colorado and Edmonton, I kind of said it last week. This is the perfect matchup. This is McDavid, McKinnon. This is like one of the matchups that the league wants to push for the next decade plus. A couple other guys could end up making that conversation in regards to young talent, but I think these are like the 2 names that people want to see face off for a while, and I'm extremely happy that we're getting it so soon as well between the 2 of them. And then I think in the East, you have the 2 best goalies in the game today, Igor Shesterkin and Andrei Vasilevsky, going at it. The best goalie the last 5 seasons in Vasi versus the best goalie this season, Igor Shesterkin, because he is going to win the Vezina Trophy for hockey novices out there. That is the award. That is the award given to the best goalie for the regular season. You have 2 outstanding series that I think are going to get better as it progresses. And I think we are set up for no matter the result we get. Now, I know Chris specifically wants a certain team to win one of these series, but I think we are set for an amazing Stanley Cup final either way. I think the matchup that I would most look forward to, I think it's just Tampa versus either team. I think Tampa versus Colorado would be the most intriguing just by a hair, because I think you have the Colorado Avalanche being the team that has been promised the last couple of years, being the team that for the last couple seasons, actually, I think last season, a very popular pick for the Stanley Cup final was Colorado versus Tampa. And I think even looking back in the 2020 bubble, I think my pick for the 2020 bubble playoff Stanley Cup final was I think I had it originally being Colorado versus Tampa as well. So Colorado Tampa has been a matchup that we have been waiting to see for the last 3 playoffs, and we might finally get it now, which is absolutely entertaining. I think the next one would be Tampa Bay versus Edmonton. Again, the back-to-back Stanley Cup champions against the Edmonton Oilers. Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl going for their first cup. It'd be Edmonton's first cup since, God, I'm trying to remember when the last Edmonton Oilers Cup was. I want to say 1990 or something along those lines. 91 maybe. I have to go back. I'm usually a lot better in terms of remembering last Stanley Cup victories, but the Edmonton one is kind of shaky for me right now. But it has been decades since they've won. It's been decades since a Canadian team has won, and that would be an especially big deal if Edmonton can make it to the Stanley Cup final, so that would be big. And then from there, I think Avalanche Rangers or Oilers Rangers would also be entertaining. Not as much, again, to me as Tampa Bay, because I think Tampa Bay being the back-to-back defending champions makes it puts the pressure on, because you have them going for a three-peat versus 2 teams that a lot of people expect to be that next team coming in terms of being a force. I think that just makes it the most entertaining. But I think overall, the NHL playoffs have been phenomenal so far. I said it last week, ESPN and TNT have just done an amazing job covering it. The post games have been great. The studio shows, TNT studio show especially. I don't know. You guys have said it yourselves. Like, playoff hockey is kind of like you watch it when you can, boys. But the TNT studio work that they've done with the NHL playoffs, to me, has just been phenomenal this season. ESPN hasn't done a bad job either, but TNT, I think, is just they've hit a formula with it, just like they have with the NBA show, and they're doing such a great job. So hockey, this was a beautiful first year with the new league agreements, and it's just chef's kiss on what is going to come, what a season that's going to come to an end very soon. And I'm very excited about it. Very looking forward to it. Again, like I said, my personal predictions, Lightning and Avalanche both winning, Avs in 7, Lightning in 6. I'm going to stick by it, even as the series go on. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Not the first time I'd be wrong in terms of playoff series predictions here, especially with conference finals. But that's how I see each series playing out. Chris, if you have anything to say about the Rangers game one, you can go and you can tote the Rangers excellence as much as you want to before we move on.
I'm just excited, man. I can't believe the New York team made it this far. Holy shit. It was a team in Madison Square Garden, to be honest. But yeah, pretty impressive showing last night. I know a lot of people had the Lightning picked, and like obviously a lot of people lost money last night. But Jurg, what do you think? Do you think the
Well,
Rangers have a shot?
oh no, I definitely think they have a shot. It's funny because I was asked this question by a friend of mine, and I picked the Rangers to win Game One because I felt that they were more hungry coming into the series because of what happened with Carolina, and I think the rest was nice for Tampa, but I also think I don't necessarily want to call it rust. I just think they were a little bit slow coming back, and I think you saw it relatively early on with the Rangers getting the first goal, and I think once they went up 3-2, I think all the confidence went to them.
Mm,
But once again, the ultimate decider in the series will be, can the Rangers beat them in back-to-back games? In order to defeat Tampa, you have to beat them in back-to-back games.
mm,
I know it's 4 times out of 7. You at some point you need to beat them in back-to-back games. I feel. I know you could technically go Rangers Lightning, Rangers Lightning, Rangers Lightning, but hey, the Maple Leafs had that trend in the first round, and look what happened. The Lightning ended up winning back-to-back games in that series to close it out. So I think to really get this team down and out, you need to win back-to-back games. I think the Rangers have had the best chance of anyone aside from Toronto in these playoffs to do so. And I think game two will be a big story. Um, I think going into, I'm expecting it to be 1-1 after game two.
mm,
My big thing is, what will the series look like after game four? Will the Rangers come back to MSG in a tied series? Will they be up 3-1 or will they be down 3-1? I think if the series is, obviously if the Lightning are up 3-1, it's over,
it's clipped.
it's clipped. I think even if it's tied 2-2, I would still be concerned because you're talking
Yep.
about big road playoff game 5 in MSG. Andre Vasilevsky's the goddamn goalie, man. Like, yes, he struggled in game one. He's going to have bad playoff games. He always bounces back. I was having this conversation with some coworkers at work. In my opinion, I've held the belief for the longest time. If you gave me one hockey game to decide everything, and I had to pick a goalie for just that one game, right? It's all or nothing. Dominic Hasek was the guy in NHL history I would have picked for that one game scenario. One game, all on the line. Your goalie needs to make every single stop possible. He needs to stand on his head. Dominic Hasek was my pick. Never had a doubt. All due respect to the other greats in the game, it was always Dominic Hasek. Andre Vasilevsky is the only guy that I have seen that I would take over Dominic Hasek in a one game scenario. And Dominic Hasek is a 6-time Vezina Trophy winner. He is a former league MVP. That is one of the greatest goalies, arguably the greatest goalie of all time. And Andre Vasilevsky, the last couple seasons, has just enhanced his legacy. He's been phenomenal. He's been the best goalie in the game, like I've said, the last half decade, and it's only going to continue. The Rangers have to just defeat him at his best once he starts playing his best to win the series. That's ultimately because, again, like I said, yes, he allowed 6 goals, but game one is not solely on Andre Vasilevsky. That Tampa Bay defense, like I was talking about before, I don't think they were back checking hard enough in the second and third period of the game. I think they let a lot of shots in the slot. They really let the Rangers do a lot of different things to them because they were unable to figure out the Rangers defense, because they even said themselves in the post-game press conference that it was that the Rangers threw out a different type of defense that they've seen in these playoffs so far, which of course, it's fine. It's game one, you'll adjust, but they did no favors for Andrei Vasilevsky. Like, yes, he allowed 6 goals, but not all 6 are on him, because I think he, I don't want to say he got left out to dry, but he was not in the best possible position to make as many saves as you probably would expect from him. So we'll see how the Lightning bounce back in game two. They're the defending champs, I expect it, and we'll just see how the series goes. But yes, realistically, do I think the Rangers have a shot? Absolutely. Like, I don't think there's a team of destiny in this year's playoffs.
Mm,
If you had to argue it, I would probably more so point to the Oilers because of McDavid. But I think the Rangers have the making of a team that just, it feels like that they're going on a run, and it's because of Shesterkin. Because ever since Game 7 of the first round, he's been just playing at a different level, and he's playing at a Stanley Cup caliber level. Now, granted, he didn't play great in round one, and he played a lot better in round two. So let's see which Igor Shesterkin are we going to get for the rest of the series. Are we going to get the Igor Shesterkin that shut down Carolina at times and shut down the Pens in Game 7, or are we going to get an Igor Shesterkin who struggled in the first 6 games of that first round series, and a guy who, yes, he's going to win the Vezina this year, but he's still young, right? So that's my ultimate question is what are we going to see from the net play for the rest of the series? The expectation is like kind of like how I said for Colorado and Edmonton, it's going to stay being a high scoring series. This series will revert back to a low scoring series. We're not going to get a lot of 5-6 goal performances from either side. I don't think we're going to get 3-2, 4-3 games. I think will be relatively what you should expect to see from high scoring, quote unquote, for the rest of the series.
Well, we're all rooting for the Rangers here. That's all I could say.
I sure hope so.
Yeah. I mean, it's been cool to watch playoff hockey, to be honest.
It's an experience.
It's definitely an experience. Yep. But yeah, at least New York sports team is making it far. Shout out to the Mets.
They've always been.
Don't say shout out to the Mets.
Well, right now, Mets and Yankees.
He was about to say shout out to the Mets. Let's stop him right there.
Shout out to the Mets and Yankees.
Here we go.
I wasn't doing that on purpose, but no, it's funny because like you mentioned a team in MSG winning, Chris, and like this is why hockey should get more attention because for the last decade, while the Knicks have struggled, yes, the Rangers had a period of time recently where they weren't doing too hot either, but they were the more consistent organization for a while.
Whoa, so Jerk, are you saying that James Dolan is a great owner? That's what I'm hearing?
No, what I'm saying is that look at the Knicks and Rangers. Which team is he more involved in for the last 10, 15 years? Who has he been more hands-on with?
Has it been the Rangers?
No, it's been the Knicks. He's been more involved. He's been way more hands-on with the Knicks. For the Rangers,
not the last 5 years. I'll say that. I don't know about the Rangers because I don't know his involvement with the Rangers. I know what I read is that he wanted a rebuild.
The thing with Dolan is that he could say what he wants with the Rangers, but he lets the hockey guys do their stuff.
Yeah,
he is way more hands. This is why if you look at football, like I think this is a perfect parallel. In football, you have the Buffalo Sabres and the Buffalo Bills are owned by the same family.
Yeah, right.
They allowed the football men to do their job with the Buffalo Bills the last 5 years. And what have they become? They become Super Bowl contenders. They have been supremely hands-on with the Buffalo Sabres. The Buffalo Sabres have been one of the worst teams in hockey the last 5 years.
Okay.
Like this is what hands-on versus hands-off ownership can do. And granted, I know people will probably try to point to cases where hands-on ownership is good. Like Mark Cuban, for the most part, people point to him as a good hands-on owner. He was ready to give Chandler Parsons a very big contract, and he had to be talked out of it.
Cuban's a little overrated in that front.
That's what I'm saying. Like that's why you need to, like owners can like of course they own the team, but you can only push so far as to you need to let the people you hire actually do their job, and that's ultimately all it comes down to. Like when you hire people, you need to let them work. If you don't, you're hindering them. And that's really been more so the case with the NBA side of things. Whereas the NHL, yes, Dolan maybe says something here and there. He was definitely involved when they fired Kyle Davidson last season, now the current Blackhawks GM. So thanks for that, Dolan. I appreciate it. But for the most part, he's been hands off with the Rangers. And you've seen that he's allowed them. Yes, he wanted a rebuild. They did rebuild. He didn't have any say in draft picks. He didn't have any say in certain things. Like he let the hockey guys handle their jobs, and it's worked out. They're back in the conference finals for the first time since I think they made the conference finals back in either 2015 or 16. I forget which year it was, but it was a half decade from this point, and they could go back to the Stanley Cup Final. They were last there in 2014. Like the Rangers have been easily more successful than the Knicks over the last 10, 15 years, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I know a lot of you. I didn't plan for this to turn to a Nick slander, but I get it. They're interconnected, whatever. But yeah, that is our hockey update. As beautifully said, as always, Jurg, doing the Lord's work. No one could do it better. But now we transition to the NBA world where the playoffs have. Wow, I'm done. I'm donezo. The NBA Finals have arrived, ladies and gentlemen. The Boston Celtics will play against the Golden State Warriors. Game 1 tonight. It is Thursday as we record. Guys, I gotta say, I think this is a pretty interesting finals matchup. I actually think this is going to be a really good matchup. I think both teams are, I don't know the statistics, but maybe since the All-Star break, they're the two best defensive teams in the NBA. Jerg, if you could fact check me on that one. I don't know.
They are.
Okay.
I saw a stat about it yesterday.
Okay, perfect. So I'm not wrong. All right, so this is going to be... I'm actually excited for this one. I am actually genuinely excited. But, look, we're going to offer our predictions here. A little bit of analysis. And what can we expect going into the series? So, Dan, let me start off with you since Jerg has kind of done all the talking. We need to give him a break. Thoughts going into this series. Not who you think will win, But how do you think the series is going to play out? Do you think it's going to be a good series? Do you think, it'll end quick? Let me know. I mean, if we're going to go there, I might as well tell me who you think is going to win as well. So,
Yeah.
who do you think is going to win at the end? So, how do you think the series is going to go? Expectations going to the series, and ultimately, who do you think is going to win?
Well, big shout out to the Celtics. I think and
Yeah.
Jason Tatum. This is an incredible run for them. They literally went through a gauntlet. The toughest opponent possible. They faced him every single round and beat him every single round.
Oh, they swept the Nets, right?
Oh, absolutely, they
Just
swept the Nets.
got to bring that
Then
up.
beat the Bucks, then beat the Heat. Like it's extremely impressive what the Celtics have done. And
But
it's
4-0 against the Nets.
hard for me to say because I hate the Celtics, but props to them. On the other side of Golden State, they just been the best team in the West basically all year. You have the Phoenix Suns, obviously, but obviously choked at the end. But like just from top to bottom, from start to finish, including the playoffs, like the Warriors have been the best team throughout the entire year in the Western Conference, and now they're in the finals facing the Celtics, who honestly probably after that RJ Barrett shot, which Jason Tatum admitted, since that moment they've been the best team in the East in my opinion, and their defense has been the best in the league. So this is an incredible matchup to have. I'm very happy with this matchup. Really, other than maybe the Heat, but I think the Celtics are a harder matchup for the Warriors than the Heat would be. I think the Warriors would maybe win in 5 against the Heat. But now I think it's going to be a better series. I think Marcus Smart matches up well with Stephen Curry. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are going to be tough for the Warriors' wings to defend because they don't have that elite player on the offense on the wings to defend them. And then obviously Robert Williams down low, Al Horford down low are going to cause a lot of problems for the Warriors, whose weakness on the offensive and defensive side of the ball is the interior. So those guys are going to cause a lot of problems. But at the end of the day, the Warriors are the Warriors. You have Steph Curry, who still doesn't have a Finals MVP, so I'm sure he's going to be extremely motivated to get his right now because he's not guaranteed another Finals appearance anytime soon. Who knows what's going to happen next year? Injuries could happen. Teams are going to get better. So anytime you're in the finals, you should not take it for granted. I think Steph Curry's going to be motivated by that, and he's going to play his butt off. And then you have Klay Thompson, obviously on his redemption tour, trying to prove to everyone that he's the same guy he used to be, same champion, the same performer in the playoffs in the biggest moment. And of course, you have Draymond Green, who's always motivated by anything. And so there's a lot of storylines on both sides, and obviously you still have the whole Jason Tatum's turning into a superstar, and if he gets his first ring at this age and going through the playoffs that he did go through would be extremely big for his legacy going forward. But my prediction is going to be the Warriors in 6. Um, I obviously don't think it's going to be a quick series, but I just don't see it going 7. I think the Celtics going to steal 2 games here and there because their defense is going to be so stifling that they're just going to wear down the Warriors. But at the end of the day, I just see the Warriors having way too much star power for the Celtics to deal with. Whether it's Klay Thompson or Steph Curry going there to barrage of threes, or Jordan Poole has one of those games that he really hasn't had in a while. But towards the end of the regular season, beginning of the playoffs, he was having these 30-point bombs that really helped the Warriors win a lot of games. So he's gonna have one of those. Andrew Wiggins might have a game where he's just great on both sides of the ball. So to me, the Warriors just have way too much star power and it's not star power, but firepower for the Celtics to deal with. And I know they have a great defense, but at the end of the day, a guy like Steph Curry, no matter what your defense is, if he gets hot, he's gonna find a way to get his shots up, make his shots, and then make plays for others as well.
Okay. So Warriors in 6 for Dame. Okay. I was going back and forth with this matchup. Mutual friend of all of us, actually, Matt. Initially, once the finals matchup was said, he said Dubs in 5. That's a diehard Golden State fan. An outlandish take because I think the Boston Celtics are way too good to be losing in a gentleman's sweep. So I thought initially when I saw the matchup, I was like, you know what, maybe Dubs in 6. But then I was like thinking about the series a little bit more, and this is gonna be tough to call, and I think it's gonna be an amazing matchup. I think it's gonna be a really good matchup. So again, like Jerk confirmed, these are 2 of the best defensive teams since the All-Star break. I think going at each other. The Warriors have way more experience here. They've been in the finals multiple times. They know what it takes. They know what needs to get done. I think you're right, Dame. This is obviously a huge matchup for Steph Curry. It's gonna be it's gonna be interesting because Steph, they went to the finals for the first time. Iguodala wins MVP, and then it was after that they lost to Cleveland. Steph doesn't have that much. He has a good finals, but not great finals. Especially it was a unanimous MVP year. Then Kevin Durant comes. Um, he wins back-to-back MVPs, Finals MVPs, I believe, and then I think it was the Toronto series where Steph had, I think, a better finals series as well. But he hasn't had that signature finals moment, right? And I think now, as an established veteran, as the guy, once again, now that Kevin Durant's gone, this is like it's kind of like a legacy setting final series for him. As weird as that sounds, because Steph is so great and he's already made an all time list and we know who he is, we know what he does. But this is kind of like a series for him to kind of establish who he is as an all time great. And it's if they it's his finals MVP to win. I know that's the narrative that's been haunting him for so long, but that's if they win. So again, they have the experience factor. I think Steph will do well. The issue is, like, this is the series for Steph to go off in, and I think for the Warriors to, like, win this series, Steph needs to be great. I think he really needs to be great. That's going to be tough, though, because the Boston Celtics, I think, have played the Warriors ever since the Warriors have been on, like, this kind of dynasty run since, like, 2015, 2016. I think the Celtics have, like, played them the best. Not saying they've been better than them. They've obviously lost a few times to them, but I think they've played them the best ever since this Warriors dynasty started. I think they've caused a lot of problems to them in these last, like, 6 years, 7 years. Like, even during the Isaiah Thomas days. But yeah, so I think for the Warriors, it's pretty simple. Like, Steph needs to not he needs to go borderline nuclear to kind of win this, especially against this defense. Like, it's not going to be easy for them. He needs to be special. Clay has been a little bit inconsistent in these playoffs, but he has these games where he goes off from three. He needs to be a little bit more consistent. It's going to be more difficult against the Boston defense. Poole, again, after the Nuggets series, kind of went on a downhill, especially after the hype I was hearing about him. Expect a little bit more. But Draymond's going to do his thing. Wiggins, we're at that point where Wiggins has to be the X factor because I don't know what I'm going to get from Jordan Poole. Again, I don't necessarily know what I'm going to get from Wiggins from an offensive standpoint, but from a defensive standpoint, I know what I'm going to get from him. I saw what he did to Luka. But yeah, Andrew Wiggins, it's going to be him and Jordan Poole are kind of wild cards in terms of the offensive standpoint because I don't know if they're going to have like streaky games. They could go off. They are very capable of that, but they're not going against the Mavericks this time. They're not going against the Nuggets. I look at the Grizzlies series, and that's very telling in my opinion because how they did struggle a bit against a team that's kind of well balanced out. Like you have your guy in Ja, but that offense is very spread out, ball movement, very well oiled machine of a team that isn't kind of like one man dominated, like Jokic and the Nuggets, and then Doncic and the Mavericks. So like the Celtics are kind of similar to the Grizzlies in that regard, where they have their guy, but also like everyone's kind of involved. Like you have your Jaylen Brown, you have your Al Horford and Robert Williams on the defensive end. Marcus Smart does this thing as well. And then so it's going to be difficult because like I look at the Grizzlies series and I saw how much the Warriors struggled, and I think the Celtics are better than the Grizzlies. So it can't be like Steph needs to go nuclear, but everyone's going to have to be involved here. I know it's a pretty generic statement, but like the Warriors can't have like those off shooting nights like they did against the Grizzlies. You know what I mean? They didn't really catch fire that series, man. They won their games without like necessarily going off, especially from their star players. Um, so they're gonna need to catch their stride early in the series, in my opinion. Like they need to ball movement needs to be a thing. Shot making, it's not gonna be easy, of course, but they need to catch a stride early on in this series. I think the first two games are gonna be very telling of where the series might go. Now, yeah, so I think it's also gonna rely on Clay a lot. Like they're gonna need Clay to really like step up very badly, and I think after that it's kind of like whoever catches fire. Obviously, it's gonna be between Poole or Wiggins, but I believe from what I heard, Otto Porter Jr., Gary Payne II, and who's the other one? And Iguodala. Iguodala's kind of a walking corpse at this point, but he'll give you some good defensive possessions. They're all coming back. So depth-wise, bench-wise, I do think the Warriors might have the upper hand here. I don't necessarily know if they'll play Kuminga. It's kind of like, obviously it's the finals now, so I don't know if you're going to put your trust in him. But again, you have your Kevon Looney's, you have your Kumingas if need be. Your Gary Paynes are coming back to give you some defensive stops. Jordan Poole coming off the bench, he's going to be very important to kind of carry the load on offense, especially if the Warriors struggle against the Boston defense. But I think that's where the positive is in play for Golden State, is that they're going to have a strong bench unit here compared to Boston. Boston, on the other hand, it's going to be interesting because this is their first final. I mean, yeah, I'm pretty sure all of them. Yeah, this is their first finals appearance for like all the guys. I'm not talking about the Celtics, but like the guys, it's their first time tasting the finals. So they've been so fun to watch, and it hurts me to say it because they're Boston, but they've been so fun to watch. It's matchups are going to matter here because again, Steph is going to need to do, you're going to need him to go off, but then again, you have Marcus Smart on him, defensive player of the year. It's going to be hard for Steph to kind of go off, and then you let Tatum cook, but then again, you're going to have Draymond on Tatum, I believe, or Wiggins on Tatum, and I think it's going to be difficult for Tatum to kind of go off because you have two really good defenders, two elite to borderline elite defenders on him. I say borderline because Wiggins is a really good defender, but elite status is not yet. So it's kind of the same thing that I have with the Warriors. You're going to need your Jaylen Browns to go off because the Warriors know that the Rock is going to go to Tatum. So if you have your two best defenders in Green and in Wiggins kind of switching on him, and then if you have Gary Payne the second, you know he's going to be post-injury to kind of help you out, to kind of give you some good defensive possessions. Won't be easy for Tatum. So it's going to be on, I expect Tatum to get his as well, but I do think it's going to be up to the Jaylen Browns and the Marcus Smarts to hit shots. I think Al Horford and Robert Williams are going to make it really difficult for the Warriors front court there. It's going to be tough to stop them because they lack in size. Yeah, this is Horford's first finals appearance. It's kind of crazy. But yeah, in terms of the bench unit, they have Peyton Pritchard coming off the bench. You have your Grant Williams. I'm going to give the edge to the Warriors bench there, but yeah, this is going to be so even keeled. It's the keys to like winning kind of applies for both teams, where it's kind of like they're going to need their star guys. I mean, their side guys, like your Jaylen Browns, your Klay Thompson, your Jordan Pooles, your Marcus Smarts to go off, because I think the opposing team's defenses have the correct weapons to kind of neutralize the star player a bit. So it's going to be up to the other teams, like side players, the non-star players, to kind of make shots and make something happen with the Rock. So in terms of that, I think I might have more faith in Boston because I've seen a little bit more consistency. Not as much compared to the Golden State Warriors side star players, but who do you trust more, Jaylen Brown or Klay Thompson right now? I don't know. I think either one, but I think I might lean towards Jaylen Brown a little bit. And then Marcus Smart catch fire on the offensive end as well. Derek White off the bench, man, he had a pretty shit for like first two rounds, but then he picked it up in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Heat. So this is going to be very back and forth. Ultimately, though, I think the experience is going to matter. I think the last 3 minutes of the Eastern Conference Finals of Game 7 told me a lot about the Boston Celtics. You can't be doing that shit against the choke job they had against the Heat. You can't be doing that against the Warriors. If you do that, they'll smell blood. The Warriors will take advantage. They'll win. Experience is going to matter here, in my opinion. I think it's a toss-up. But I'm going to go with the Warriors in 7, actually. I'm going to go with the Warriors in 7. I would not be surprised if the Boston Celtics win this. I won't be surprised if they win the finals, though. I will not be surprised. I hate to say it, and I hate to see it, but like Dame said, they're a really fun team to watch because they're like really good basketball-wise. They play basketball the right way, but the fact that they're Boston, it kind of sucks. But won't be surprised if the Celtics win. I have Warriors winning in 7 in a very good series. Jerg, I'm sorry for taking too much time. Go ahead, buddy.
No problem at all. No problem at all. You teased us, Chris. You teased the people. We thought that you were going to go Boston there for a second. That was a very eloquent soliloquy by each of you. A very beautiful monologue for the final series. I can't wait for Andre Iguodala to somehow win Finals MVP again this time around, or
Oof.
the true Western Conference Finals MVP Andrew Wiggins.
Yo, dude, if he wins, I'm done.
Oh my goodness! Wouldn't it be spectacular if Curry gets a fourth chip, but they just don't give him the Finals MVP?
I know Dame would love that.
Oh my god, that would be beautiful. You don't understand how much ammo I'd have for the rest of my life. I already see like Steph LeBron arguments starting to pop up little by little, starting to like plant the seeds. If he doesn't win a Finals MVP, oh, it's gonna be a beautiful day.
I would love for Klay Thompson to win MVP.
That'd be
Look,
awesome.
listen, I put money on the Warriors to win the championship in like October. So
How much do you have?
I'm personally rooting for the Warriors, but I'm rooting for Steph not to get a Finals MVP.
Is it a big payout before you go on, Drew? My bad.
150.
It's not bad. That's not bad. All right, you go ahead, Drew.
No problem. So, um, the analysis of the series is intriguing to say the least. You have the top two defensive teams in the league, both post All-Star break, and I think I saw it yesterday. They're definitely 1-2 for sure post All-Star break, maybe even overall in the season. But definitely the second half of the year, these are the top two defensive teams in the league. I think defensively, I think that's the true coin flip in regards to what can happen, because you have a defensive player of the year candidate in Draymond Green, the heart and soul of that defense, the leader there. He can help get the Warriors defense down packed. And then on the other side, the two Williams boys. I know Smart's the quote unquote defensive player of the year, that, Jimmy Butler scores double digit points on him in the last two games of the series. But I think Grant and Robert Williams' defense is going to be key here. Grant Williams' defense helping to, try to limit the inside slash wing game of the Warriors, especially if, Grant Williams, Andrew Wiggins, I think is an underrated matchup in this series, because, like I say it as a joke, but Andrew Wiggins played extremely well in the conference finals overall. And I think Grant Williams, he's had moments in these playoffs where he's played good. That game 7 against Milwaukee in particular. Um, Robert Williams as well. If he had been healthy for the Celtics this entire time, I think that it would have been a no doubter that they would have been here in the NBA Finals, because he's extremely good. Again, I'd argue that he's their real defensive player of the year because of what the impact he can have. And I think for the Warriors, the Celtics are so good at guarding the three that if you do start to struggle, or if you can't get as many clean threes as you normally can, if Robert Williams is out there more often than not, which who knows what the hell they're going to inject in his his knees and stuff for this series. But if Robert Williams is out there for 25, 30 minutes a game, then what percentage inside are you going to shoot if your outside shots are starting to struggle? So I think that's a big thing, for at least for me personally, going into this series in regards to that. I think you both bring up great points in terms of when you look at the Warriors, they have that experience. They have the guard play, which this is easily the best backcourt that the Celtics are going to face in these finals, which I think is something a lot of people are underrated. In round one, you had Kyrie Irving and insert name of net shooting guard next to him. Like, I don't even know if there was a consistent starter next to him in that series. I just know like it didn't matter. In round two, you had just Drew Holiday and not Chris Middleton. And in round three, you had Kyle Lowry and Max Strus. And let's be real here, games 4 and 5, they were non-existent. And that overall, that played in the Celtics' favor. This is the best backcourt that they have faced in these playoffs so far. Not to discredit Boston, Dame said it best. The Boston Celtics had the hardest possible road of any team in these playoffs, and they made it to the NBA Finals. You took out KD and Kyrie in the first round in a sweep. You took out the defending NBA champions with a multi-time MVP in round two, and you took out the number one seed in the Eastern Conference in the conference finals on their home court in Game 7. Like, the hardest possible road to the finals was for Boston this year, and they did it. Phenomenal to say the least. For the Golden State Warriors, I think Chris brings up the best possible point of how are they going to face a balanced team. You kind of saw in Memphis, they gave them a few more issues than the Nuggets and the Mavericks did. But I think it's ultimately going to be, is it going to be the guards or the wings that win the series? Is it going to be the wings of Boston, the cornerstones of the franchise, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, or is it going to be the guards of Golden State? Are we going to see a return of Klay Thompson here in the series, who I now actually hope wins the Finals MVP, or Steph Curry? I think that's a big thing here. And also shout out to Al Horford, the most career playoff games by someone who hadn't made a finals before this. So good for him that he makes one. That is the LeBron effect, keeping him out of the finals for a decade. But I think this series, when you look at it, there's so many different things that can play the X factor here, Chris, and that's ultimately what the finals is about. It's about so many different things. You can't just point to one player or one thing of being a difference sometimes. You have the supreme shooting of the Golden State Warriors, which has struggled at times here. Are they going to return to form? Are Curry, Clay, and Poole going to just go off in this series? You definitely have to give an advantage guard play wise to the Golden State Warriors to me. But then you look at the wings and you have Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum have just been phenomenal throughout these playoffs. Jason Tatum being the Eastern Conference Finals MVP. Um, he's been great to say the least. And yeah, he struggled here and there, especially against Miami. He had about 2-3 bad games against the Heat. Can the Warriors do that to him? I mean, they certainly have a guy who defensively is smart enough in Draymond Green. You have a guy who's athletic enough to guard Jason Tatum and Andrew Wiggins. Um, like you said, will Jonathan Kuminga play in the series? If he does, how much of a factor would he be maybe guarding Tatum? Who knows? Like, you have that, but the wings I give to Boston. I got to give the bigs to Boston too, as well, because it's Horford and Robert Williams. Kevon Looney played great in the conference finals. He averaged a double-double in the Western Conference Finals, but he's going to have an extremely difficult time against Al Horford and Robert Williams. Grant Williams, I don't know how you want to technically label him, but he's going to play a factor in the series. I do give a slight bench advantage to the Golden State Warriors, but it's not massive, especially if Otto Porter Jr. and Gary Payton can come back in the series and play effective. I think that really swings it to Golden State. And coaching, like Udoka, to me, for a first-year head coach, has been phenomenal. Now, Steve Kerr has, of course, the experience. Like Steve Kerr, I think, is a lot better of a coach than a lot of people have wanted to give him credit for, especially when they had the big four there. But Steve Kerr is a really good coach. But Ime Udoka has just been like his game planning, the way that he has adjusted in series. Like if the Milwaukee Bucks had him as a head coach, they probably would win the finals this year because when you have Mike Budenholzer as your head coach, you're the series. But irregardless, I think it's you said it yourself, Chris. It's a toss up because I just went back and forth between these teams and it's even. So what is this series going to come down to? And I think you guys said the top two names. Are we going to see the true ascension into superstardom for Jason Tatum, or does Steph Curry ultimately define his legacy in this series and he just absolutely goes off? Now I will say I think a little bit of the stuff against Steph has been slightly overblown. Now
Yes, 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 yes.
very much like Dame, I am one to be on like I just don't think that there's no legit Curry versus LeBron argument. To me, it just doesn't exist. LeBron is higher up and will always be higher up on that all-time scale. But for Steph to guarantee himself a seat in the top 10, 12 of all time, I can see why some people believe he does need a Finals MVP award. I can kind of see an argument there. But at the same time, this is a guy who in his career has averaged like 26, 6, and 5 for the Finals. So he's shown up um, at the end of the day. I just think, again, you said it, Chris, the way the Celtics can run you off the three. Remember, a good 3-point defense is not forcing you to miss 3-pointers. It's being able to get you to run off the 3-point line to get you to take threes less. But can you do that against a team that the off-ball movement of the Golden State Warriors is going to be the best off-ball movement that the Celtics have faced in the
Yeah,
playoffs?
for sure.
And just the way that they set up screens, the way that that Steph and Clay, even without screens, like especially I feel like in these playoffs, Steph's off ball movement has been otherworldly.
And it has been for like ever, to be honest.
It has, but I feel like in these playoffs, especially, like I think people have always joked about, like in the past, that Draymond and Bogut and all the bigs would just like
Yeah.
tackle you to the ground to get Steph open, which was kind of the case half the time. But I feel like this year is just Steph is so smooth in getting open. He without even the screens. I think this Warriors offense, it's the best the Warriors offense has looked in years. I think even better than the last time they made the finals in 2019. I think just the flow of the Warriors offense is better now than they've been in the last couple seasons. Obviously, the last two notwithstanding because they were hurt. I this is like you, Chris. It's so difficult for me because for the longest time I've said if I had to pick a position type in the NBA to build my team around, I would pick the two-way wing. And
Oh,
Jason Tatum is his defense still needs work, but he is a two-way wing, and I think he's going to have a big series. Now, I don't want to see him wear a purple armband every single time because my God, did that clash against the Celtics jerseys. But at the
yeah.
same time, like he is that dude. I definitely think to your point, it's valid. Who's going to be the better number two, Clay or Jalen? Whose defense is gonna step up? The Celtics or the Warriors? But who is going to show themselves to be an alpha? who is going to show themselves to be one of the true best in the game and maybe best of all time, and who is going to be the guy in this series. And I believe at the end of the day, I'm counting on Jason Tatum to be that
Woo!
dude. But
Oh,
but but we've seen a wing player be dominant against the Warriors and lose before. So my final pick is the Golden State Warriors
Mhm.
to win this series in 7 against the Boston Celtics. But Jason Tatum will be the best player on the floor in the series, in my
Oh, I
opinion.
could see that.
And 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 it's, again, this is not me saying Steph won't be great. I think Steph will put up like 27, 7, and 6 in this series, but Tatum's going to put up like 29, 9, and 6. And between the two of them, it's back and forth, and who's going to show up at the end of the day is a who's who. But this is what it ultimately comes down to for me. This is my final point, my bad. But in a 5-minute stretch, who can take the game?
It's
The
the Warriors.
Warriors can do that more than anyone else we've seen in the last 5, 6, 7 years. Like you said, Chris, the Boston Celtics, to me, the fact that they didn't close out the Heat in Game 6 told me everything I need to know.
Yep.
That
Yep.
there's a kill. One of these teams has the true killer mentality, the other one doesn't. And in a 5-minute stretch, no matter the situation, can you claw your way back and take the lead? And the Warriors can do that. Boston can't. I don't think the Boston Celtics, if they were down 15 in the last 5 minutes of the game, can win the game. I think they can
Yeah.
come close. I don't think they can win the game. I think the Golden State Warriors down 15 with 5 minutes left can win the game. And that's going to be the ultimate thing. The true mark of an elite team is if you can get outplayed for 40 plus minutes, but you could just be the better team in 5 minutes and you win. I think that's Golden State Warriors. I think Jason Tatum's going to play great. I think he is going to show that he is arguably the best player in the series, but I don't think that's going to be the case in terms of deciding the champion. I have the Golden State Warriors winning this series at the end of the day. And my finals MVP.
Well, before you go on, how many
Damn it.
games? How many games, Eric?
7.
said 7, bro.
Okay.
Listen.
My bad. I was just restating the point, but I want to give my finals MVP now. And my finals MVP of the series will be Wardell, Stephen Curry.
Yeah, I was gonna ask who would we have for Finals MVP after, but since Jerk kind of already
Here's the
like
thing,
brought it up.
even if the guy's average, the writers and media is just gonna feel bad for him. They're just gonna give it to him.
Yeah, it's a narrative based league at this point.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, my bad. I don't want to extend the episode too much, but do you guys want to hear a story that I actually heard about earlier this week?
Give us the inside scoop, baby.
So I was listening to a podcast on Apple called Basketball Illuminati, and
Wow.
it's an amazing podcast. And they were talking about that finals, right, between the Warriors and Cavs. So I might be misremembering it.
Oh, I know what
But
you're talking about, and I think
right?
I know you.
What the whole thing was is that the voters were split between LeBron, Steph, and Iguodala for Finals MVP. And
Okay.
because the Warriors at the end, so here's the thing. Apparently, I think I've said this before. They ask you to give your Finals MVP pick at the start of the fourth quarter, so which is stupid. Apparently, I forget what the situation was in Game 6. I guess maybe the Warriors were up by double digits, but essentially, because it looked like the Cavs were going to lose, everyone who had picked LeBron, they were telling them to pick somebody else, and essentially everyone just turned their LeBron pick to Andre Iguodala. So that's why Iguodala ended up winning the Finals MVP, because everyone just chose to pick Iguodala from switching from LeBron. They didn't even bat an eye about picking Steph. So something along those lines is apparently what happened back in that series. So
I heard that I don't know if it was exactly. Maybe I misread it, but I read that it was the first round of votes was Steph winning it, actually winning it, and then I don't know why they had to redo it. That's the thing I'm forgetting. But when they redid it, it became Iguodala. But through the first rounds of votes, it was Steph.
I think it's because no. So this is why I don't think we're wrong here, Dame. I think the thing is that LeBron had the second most votes, and they asked him to switch the LeBron votes, and they turned LeBron to Iguodala, and that's why Iguodala got it. I think that's what happened.
Yeah,
You get what I mean?
I know the final one. Steph had no votes. It was just Iguodala, and it was like 8-4 Iguodala to LeBron.
It was it was something along those lines. So it's just insane. But yeah, the NBA Finals voting can be screwy. So like if Steph doesn't win it again, that'd be wild to say the least. But I kind of like you guys said, like Finals MVP here and there, it can be a little bit narrative based. So there is a chance that Steph will probably just get it no matter what. But yeah, that was just horribly retold. I probably should have tried to re-listen to that episode that I was listening to in regards to that. But you know, that something shady stuff happened in terms of the 2015 NBA Finals MVP voting. That's all I want to say. So like that's just to your guys' point on who Finals MVP could be. Dame, I mean, you joked that you wanted Clay or someone else to win Finals MVP. Is Steph your Finals MVP pick?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not even just the fact that I think they're gonna feel bad and give it to him. I genuinely think that he's gonna be the best player on the best team. Like, I don't think Tatum's gonna be that good where it's like kind of a LeBron thing where he has a case for being the Finals MVP. I think Steph's not gonna be. I don't want to say bad as he was in the other finals, but I think he's gonna raise his game to be better than he was in those previous finals where there really is no debate on who else could be the Finals MVP other than him.
Right, and there's no Kevin Durant on his team this time
Yeah.
around as well. To say the least. But Clay could go off. Who knows? Maybe they give Draymond a vote or two. Who knows when it comes to the voting in and of itself. Chris, you have you picked the Warriors in 7 as well.
Yeah.
Me and Dame are consensus with Steph as our Finals MVP. Are you going to buck the trend there? Are you going to be like the voters back in 2015? Or are you going to pick against Steph?
No. I think Steph takes it. I think this is his year. And again, like even if he's like, for example, if like Clay and Steph have like an evenly like good final series, I think they give it to Steph just because narrative based. It's narrative based. It's a storyline.
He'd have to like actually shit the bed. To
I don't know, bro. I don't. You know how the NBA is, man. Like they like storylines and shit.
Now, if the Warriors win, but Steph only averages like 19 a game, I don't think they're going to give it to him.
Yeah.
Who are they going to give it to?
That's like the only way though. Like he has to average like under 20.
Yeah, like
that's
yeah.
Like, crazy.
Yeah.
But if he averages under 20 and they win, that means somebody else had to have an insane series. Like they're not winning a series if he's averaging under 20.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we're all in consensus. Warriors in 7 for me and Jurg. Warriors in 6 for Dame. Unanimous decision across the board. Steph Curry, Finals MVP.
This would not have been the case 3, 4, or 5 years ago.
No, it would not. But yeah, that'll do it for this week. Jurg, where can they find us on the socials, bud?
Ladies and gentlemen, you guys already know, at SomeWhatSports on Instagram to follow us. We put up polls daily. There will be polls. I mean, technically, it'll be afterwards when you're listening, but we're going to be posting polls throughout the conference finals, the NBA finals, and eventually the Stanley Cup finals that you can vote on daily. And you can also follow us for updates on the show. You know, this is going to be a big summer. The Somewhat Sports Summer of 2022 is going to be a good one. It's going to be a fun one, and we have a lot of fun stuff planned for the summer. And then, of course, you can follow us here on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Let us know what you love about the show. And then, of course, finally, for the YouTube, by the way, it's Somewhat Space and then Sports, and then also Somewhat Space and then Sports on Spotify. When the episodes get posted, leave a review, 5 stars on it. Let us know, what you want more of. Do you want more of Chris and Dane bickering on a weekly basis? I mean, I know I want that personally, speaking on a week-by-week basis. Do you want us to talk about other sports? Maybe we do typically talk about the Big Four, but is it finally time that we talk a little bit about soccer, boys? This winter is the World Cup. Do we start preparing for the World Cup this winter?
I got boys ready for that, so we're good.
I got USA winning it. I already put money on it.
Yeah, what a patriot.
So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. The World Cup coverage is already starting for us, but if you want us to do a little bit more or have some more fun little excerpts and stories, maybe stuff we can research on, maybe like a fun segment here and there where we take a look at a seminal moment in sports history, have some fun with it, who knows, we could do stuff like that. If you have these ideas, just let us know in the comments. And of course, like I said, like on YouTube, subscribe, follow us on Spotify, download the pod, 5 stars, all that good stuff. Thank you all so much for always supporting us on a weekly basis. And that was another beautiful episode of the show, ladies and gentlemen.
Beautifully said as always, Jurg. We appreciate you. We appreciate everyone listening. If you made it this far, thank you. Jurg and Dame, superstars as always. So that is it for this week. And until next time, peace.